Christ will reign in a millennial kingdom. And why is that important for us? Well, I believe it's important because it encourages us as believers to remain faithful in the face of persecution and difficulty and hard times and brokenheartedness and injustice and mistreatment and marginalization, and when it feels like evil is winning. Has anybody ever felt like evil is winning? The bad guys are advancing, and there certainly will be moments like that where you feel like Satan has the upper hand. And we need to be reminded with visions of the future of what the ultimate outcome is. And that is Christ reigns, and we will reign with him. He is victorious. Satan is fighting a futile fight. He will not win. So what is happening here? Two things I would argue. First, we see that Satan is bound. Look at verse number 1 with me. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, holding in his hand the key to the bottomless pit. Now, some of your translations will say the abyss, and a great chain. And he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and threw him into the pit, and shut it, and sealed it over him, so that he might not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be released for a little while. And so what do we see here? We see God exercising his sovereign great power over evil. It is God triumphantly and boldly, resoundingly reminding us that Satan is not the yin to his yang. If you got in your mind a picture of Satan being God's equal but evil counterpart, you got a wrong view of Satan. He is subordinate to God. He is not in God's class. Only God is omnipotent. Only God is omnipresent. Only God is omniscient. Only he has all power, and he exercises that power. And as I've reminded you before, what this text reminds us of in the original audience is that God does not relinquish one day, one moment, one square inch to Satan. As a matter of fact, again, as I have said, over every square inch of created order, Christ boldly declares, mine. He is Lord of all. And so he sends this angel, and I love that it's a nameless, ordinary angel. It just reminds us that Satan is not the all-powerful foe that many of us deem him to be. Formidable, but not all-powerful, not almighty. Only God is. And so God wants us to know through this inspired writing, John wants his original audience and us by extension to know who it is that is being bound. This one who has wreaked havoc, the arch enemy of all things that are of God, especially God's people, and that is the devil, who's been causing problems since the garden up until now. That's the one that's going to be bound and imprisoned. And how do we know that? It's because John calls him not by one name, but by 4 names. Verse number 2, we see the first name. He seizes the dragon. And then John says, just in case you don't know who we're talking about, that ancient serpent. Now, as Pastor Steve reminded us last week, the key to interpreting Revelation is to have a strong grasp of the Old Testament, the Torah, if you will, the Pentateuch in particular. And so here, who is this ancient serpent? It's a serpent in the garden that deceived Eve. This is the one that's being bound. Then he goes on to say, to clear up any mystery, who is the devil and Satan, the one we call the devil and Satan. He is going to be bound, but he's not just going to be defeated, friends. Look at what it says in verse number 2. It says he's going to be seized. Then later on in verse number 2, he's going to be bound. And then in verse number 3, he's going to be thrown into the pit. The pit is going to be shut, and then it's going to be sealed. I just love this imagery. I love this visual that Satan is going to be handcuffed. He's going to be hogtied. He's going to be thrown in that pit. The door is going to be closed. It's going to be sealed, and he will not be able to exercise any power. He is a defeated foe. What are you saying, Chris? I'm saying there's a day that's coming where injustice will be defeated. There's a day that's coming where evil will be defeated. There's a day that's coming where all that is demonic is going to be defeated. One of the things that this text does for us is it cuts against the grain of secular atheism that tries to make us think that everything that is broken in our culture and our lives is all rationalistic. That if we just educate humanity enough, if we just give them enough sophistication and culture, that we will one day morally outgrow our fallenness. But we're the most affluent country the world has ever seen. And have you cut on the news lately? If money could do it, we wouldn't see the type of stuff we're seeing. And the stuff that we're seeing, it's not all natural. Satan influences and put thoughts into the minds of people. Have you ever seen such evil that you say, this is just purely demonic? And not only are these evil things happening, but we've graduated to the place of our immorality where we celebrate evil, we legislate evil, we rejoice in evil, and all of this demonic stuff is happening. But a day is coming, friends, where the enemy is going to be captured, he is going to be bound, he is going to be hogtied, thrown in a pit, it will be sealed, and he will deceive no more. How many thank God for that day that's coming on the horizon?